I said I'd make another video when it was less windy, so I'll do a little more in depth. So this is my Turbo LS 1984 Nissan 300ZX. I'll start off with the engine. So the engine is a 2003 LM7 out of Chevy Tahoe. It's just basically stock. All I did was pull the pistons and rods out. I checked the ring gap. They were all pretty good, opened up for boost. Put a Summit Stage 2 turbo cam in it. And, I kind of debated between that one and the sloppy Stage 2. But the Summit cam was cheap and it's hard to find the Summit or the sloppy Stage 2, so I just went with the Summit one. I like it, it's good. The intake is a LS6 intake. It's got the Corvette accessories. It's just the standard flip truck manifolds into a 2 1/4 inch V-band into the crossover. It goes into the turbo. The turbo is actually a Gen 1 billet VS Racing 7875, but it has the Gen 2 housing on it, the bigger housing. The wastegate's just welded right onto the turbine housing. It controls the boost pretty good. It's 44mm wastegate. The downpipe is 4-inch and it necks down into a 3.5-inch and it goes all the way back out the back. It's got a vibrant resonator and then a Dynamax muffler that I welded up myself. It's heat wrapped because it gets pretty hot in there. The intercooler piping is just 2.5-inch. This is a Greddy blow-off valve type RS. It's got a K&N air filter. Forgot to mention it has PAC 1218 valve springs, and they do pretty well. Summit says you shouldn't be really revving the engine out too high with those springs in this cam, but I rev it to 6,900 RPM, no problem. The only specific kind of things you have to worry about for the Z31 when you're doing an LS swap is the radiator hose. This is this radiator cap housing right here. It's 1.5-inch. It goes into stock. That's a Champion 3-row radiator. This is a 1.25-inch that goes into the water pump, and this lower hose is 1.5, so you can just use the stock hose down there. The only one you got to worry about is the upper hose. So that's pretty much it about the engine. Nothing special, just like a sloppy don't BS me combo. The injectors are Snake Eater Performance 850cc 80-pound injectors. They're like Deca 80-pound injectors. They're pretty good. They idle well and all that. These are Jegs fuel rails. It's just 8AN lines. So it comes out of the tank. I adapted a Walbro 450 to the stock fuel tank hanger, and it's got an 8AN coming out the top, and that feeds a Racetronics fuel filter. Then it goes in the rail, comes through 8AN, then it goes out 6AN to the fuel pressure regulator. It's just a Tomei Type S. It's like $50. They're cheap. That's why I used it. It's probably kind of near its max. Probably upgrade that eventually. This is the Sickie TR6060 clutch kit. It's got the Wilwood master cylinder, and it's got this little adapter here. I don't know if you can see that, to mount this Wilwood master cylinder to an S13, but the S13 actually has the same bolt pattern. So if you're doing a swap like this for a Z31, you can use a lot of S13 stuff. Yeah, and then that clutch line just runs down into the slave. Alright. I'll talk about the radiator a little bit. This is a Champion 3-row, and this fan right here is out of a like 96 Ford Taurus, I want to say, and it's just wired up to the it's actually a 2-speed fan, but it's only wired to 1 speed low, and that does fine. It has no problems overheating. That's wired up to the gold box that controls when the fans kick on. Another specific thing for the Z31, this heater block, you know, some people say you don't need to run it, some people say you do. I just did. I got it used for, you know, cheap price, so might as well have it there just in case. But yeah, the heater hoses run into there, and then they run into the heater core, and I had to use a because the one side is 3/4 inch and the other side on the LS heaters is 5/8 inch. I had to just use an adapter from 5/8 to 3/4 inch there, and it just works fine with the stock heater petcock and all that. It's hooked up to the vacuum, so it works. Here's my catch can. These are just run off the valve covers, and then over there where the PCV valve is, just runs right there, and it's just vented to the atmosphere. It's just some wiring stuff. This is actually right here is the wiring for my oil pressure sensor that I haven't hooked up yet. Brake setup, I'll move on to the brakes. So this is a Z32 brake master cylinder. It's 1 1/16 inch. This is a S14 manual transmission brake booster. It's slimmer, so it allowed me to suck the master cylinder in some. The stock one is really fat, and I don't have any complaints with this one. Sometimes, you know, after a huge boost hit, you're coming off boost and you start to brake, it's a little firm because it doesn't have a lot of vacuum. You know, it's a small brake booster, so these rotors are actually new. They're drilled and slotted 350Z Brembo track pack rotors, 12 3/4 inch CTSV Brembo front calipers. They're 4-piston. They're pretty big. They even make adapters for the S13 to fit the 6-piston calipers, but they're way overkill for most people. I mean, these stop pretty damn good. Yeah, it has the CTSV BrakeSwap.com S13 adapters to mount those calipers on the Z31. Now it does have 87 turbo front hubs. You can do it with any of the hubs, but you kind of have to grind them down. Some people do it that way. I just wanted to have the, you know, done it the right way with the 87 turbo hubs. I'm sure the other way works fine too, though. Alright, move to the back here. So yeah, those wheels up there are 350Z. They're actually 18 by 8.5 wide. They're the rear wheels off a 350Z from 2006. These are Race Stars. They're 17-inch wheels, 9.5 wide. It's like 7-inch back spacing because the S14 subframe's so wide. Needed a lot of back spacing. They're Mickey Thompson drag radials on there. They hook pretty well. They're 295 45 R17s. I don't even think they make these anymore. Now they have the 305 tires. Yeah, the car's a little dirty. So this is the S14 subframe, 350Z diff. All adjustable arms. The lower arms are P2M. The other arms are all Power Tricks. Megan Racing sway bar. Yep. Z32 Q45 32 spline axles and wheel hubs. Those are actually Z32 aluminum uprights with the adapters. You see the little bracket right there? Those are adapters to mount S13 or S14, whatever, coilovers to a Z32 knuckle or upright. It's a 3.5-inch exhaust. There's the muffler. You can kind of see the resonator up there. Yeah, it's got the e-brake setup on it, but it's not hooked up in the front yet, so I still have to do that. Transmission up there, it's a TR6060 of a 2010 Camaro, but it has a slip yoke conversion, so I can run a slip yoke drive shaft. I'll get a better view of that. It's got a LOJ transmission cross member. You can see the T56 Magnum tail housing right there, slip yoke. It's got a T56 Magnum main shaft too. Wiring's hanging down a little bit. You gotta fix that. It's got a I forgot to mention more stuff specific to the Z31. It's got an F-body oil pan, and the Dirty Dingo mounts. You have to run those to fit in the stock subframe here. You can see it's pretty close. Oh. You think anything else? These coilovers are off an S13 Racelands. So sorry, I kind of got distracted about the gauges here. So the fuel level gauge, that's just hooked up the stock fuel sender. That's no problem. The tach is hooked, so it's wired to the gold box, and the gold box tach is output to a tach signal adapter that DIY Auto-Tune makes. You can find it on their website. So it's just wired into that, and that's wired right to the tach signal for the dash, and it just works fine. No problem. You just have to scale it a little bit in the Megasquirt settings. That's not a big deal. The speedo is wired to the gold box, and then the gold box's output to the stock signal wire for the speedo. So you just mess with the settings in the Tuner Studio software for the gold box again. You can scale it, make it, read the right speed, how fast you're going. I just used a GPS on my phone to make sure the speed's matched. That's not too big of a deal. The only issue is, I don't know if you could tell from, you'll see later in the video when I go for a little drive, the speedo, it probably needs some kind of resistor, or like pull up the signal some to, it seems like it has a hard trouble distinguishing between, speed. So it'll jump real fast, like it'll go from 40 to like 50 miles per hour, and it won't really, scale up when you speed up. It won't like scale up appropriately. It'll jump big chunks of speed. So I think if I used to pulled the signal up, that would fix that. But it works. I can tell what speed I'm going. That's about as much as I need, so no big deal there. The coolant is wired to just the stock Nissan coolant temp sensor for the dash. That's actually sitting in the passenger side head, and then the stock GM sensor is on the driver side head. That goes to the gold box. That lets it know when to turn on the electric fans and such. So I bought an adapter from Mark's 4-wheel drive out in Australia. It wasn't really that cheap, but I wanted all my stock gauges working. So, did what I had to do. Because the stock LS head is actually the same size thread, but the pitch is different. So I think the head on the LS's is a 12 millimeter, it's either an M12 or an M10, something like that, by 1.5, but the Nissan needs a 1.25 pitch thread, so it didn't really thread in right. So I didn't want to mess with that. And then the alternator is just, you wire up some of the stock wiring to the battery. There's like white wires near the, the fusible links. You just wire that up to the battery, and it gives it the 14 volts. So that gauge works. Yeah, that's it. All the stock gauges work except the oil pressure. Still have to wire that up, but that's pretty much it. Get the dash. Speedo works. straight pipe 3-inch exhaust with a vibrant resonator. It was just too loud. Now with a 3.5-inch exhaust and the vibrant resonator and the muffler, it's not too bad. That's a nice little cruising vehicle. Car to drive around and then just punch it. These cars are pretty light too, so they're pretty good power to weight ratio. I think this one probably weighs about 3,200 pounds, because the Iron Block LS is about 100 pounds heavier than the old VG. You put an aluminum 5.3 in here, or an aluminum block, whatever, LS, it should weigh about the same.